A is for Alcoholic is a program about recovery. My name is John and I'm an alcoholic.
And my name is Jerry and I'm an alcoholic.
Join us as we go through the alphabet of alcoholism one letter at a time. As of the recording of this episode, the episode that just came out today was my conversation with Mishka Shubali. And one of the reasons I was able to do that was because of our Patreon page, because of the patrons that we have on Patreon. And, because I had to drive down to Emeryville, I had to get a hotel room. I had to stay there and kind of coordinate things. And, that kind of money doesn't, it's not cheap to get a hotel room for a night. Yeah. Otherwise I was going to have to drive an hour back and forth and not sleep, and it just wouldn't have worked. And so, that's one of the things that I just wanted to say thank you to all of our Patreon patrons that help us do these things and help us pay to, for the SoundCloud and all that stuff. So it's really
thank you.
Like I was thinking about like the real physical, like the real life benefits of it, and so that's something that was really cool that we were able to do with that. So yeah, thank you guys.
We appreciate it. Thank you for helping John out to do his thing.
We're also sponsored by Green Camel Press, as always. T-shirts and greeting cards, and we just started making some labels, and we do all kinds of cool comics, and all kinds of cool stuff. So go check us out at greencamelpress.com. They sponsor us. You buy a T-shirt or you get yourself a nice digital doodle. What's a digital doodle, Jerry?
What is a digital doodle, Jerry?
Well, you do them. You just do them actually all digitally. But, when you do the Procreate drawings and it's sort of a time-lapse drawing, we just do that in real life. I just set up the camera and overhead, and he kind of draws, and then we chop it up and add some music and make it into a fun little thing. So, I mean, if you go to Green Camel Press or at Green Camel Press on Instagram, you can see our stuff. And, so go check us out on Green Camel Press.
Check them out. They got all that shit. This is more than Johnny with a marker and a label maker.
Which would be pretty good too. I mean, some days that's all there is. Yeah. I'm out on the corner. Hey, you need a label?
Need a label, and then you just break out the label maker. It just says, "That's that shit." That's all. That's that shit. Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang. And then our other sponsor is our sibling podcast, Gluten is Not Your Problem. Did you listen to the latest episode yet?
No, because I've been listening to audiobooks and stuff. Okay. I've been listening to The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck and then Mishka's book, so I haven't had a chance to podcast or to listen to any podcasts, but I will.
But this last one is a really there's a deep, dark family mystery that gets revealed.
Oh, like Walter doesn't start crying halfway through it.
No, he doesn't.
Oh man, I'm waiting for that one.
Well, he talks about it. We called it this episode was the Great Train Mystery.
Right, and I thought it was another time travel.
No, I'll let you know that we should do a three-way. You want to be a part of the next time travel episode?
I'd love to. I got to do some research though, but yeah, we'll figure it out.
I just watch a few YouTube videos; it'll be fine.
I will. It'll just be flat Earth videos.
But so for years he had a train when he was a little kid, and somebody broke it, and he never knew, and nobody ever told him. And he tells the story about how he found out that who broke the train, and about a cousin, his mother's cousin, who was who allegedly murdered his wife and was going on trial in Alaska for murdering his wife. And it's a really good story that I had never heard. Knowing the guy for 20 years, I have
to listen to this.
I'd never heard this story, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he said, "No, just let me finish the story." And he told the whole story about the alleged murderer, cousin murderer, and the train mystery of who actually broke the train. So.
Dude, his life is like a Wes Anderson movie if everyone were drunk. If everyone was drunk in a Wes Anderson movie. There's it's like My Dad Was a Falconeer. He used to falconate. Does he listen to this podcast at all?
I don't think so.
I imagine he doesn't.
No,
He's
he doesn't
like,
listen to this.
Fuck that noise.
His Wes Anderson movie would be called like the Royal Jaeger Bombs or something.
The Royal Jaeger Bombs. Yeah, exactly, dude.
But
funny.
go listen to Gluten Is Not Your Problem. It's a great show with myself and our good friend Walter. He's got a hell of a life, so he's pretty cool in sharing us. And if you're wondering what the title's all about, is well, he's also been in the culinary biz for a long time, and he's got some very strong opinions about things like gluten free and all that stuff. So Gluten Is Not Your Problem, greencamelpress.com. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to A is for Alcoholic. That's where you're at. That's what you're here for, is a little sober talk. And today's episode, and we didn't even discuss beforehand about this yet.
Not at all. So we're going into this raw, son. We're raw dogging this
raw
thing.
And fresh.
Raw and fresh, dude.
Well, one of the things that we always like to say is that however you get sober is what's most important. And
absolutely, yeah.
You know, Jerry and I both went through a particular 12-step program of anonymous alcoholics. And
right.
But I thought it would be interesting to explore some other things, because, like, you know, what if there was other stuff, and what if there was more things, and what if there were different ways, and how do other people approach it? And I know that AA can be very intimidating. I mean, for people who want to go there, let alone people who don't.
Yeah.
So today we were going to talk about R is for Refuge Recovery. And Refuge Recovery, you read the book, right? Or you had the book?
I started the book. I made it halfway through. I have short attention span at time, and then other things. Yeah, I need to finish it. I didn't do my homework.
Well, I just picked it up, and I haven't read it. And that's another thing I want to say is this is not an exhaustive research.
I just have Noah Levine's biography. I don't have that book.
Okay.
That nobody can see right now, but it's the Refuge Recovery.
So, I always tell everybody, do your own homework about these things. This is just our opinion on
right.
something that we are just learning about, you know, now. Not just now, but in the last week or two.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I went on Monday.
And I went last night. So a Refuge Recovery is it's a Buddhist path to recovering from addiction, is what the cover of the book says. Yes. And can I ask you how your experience went?
You know, man, Monday came. I knew I could do it on Monday. I couldn't do it Sunday. I was doing something else, and I knew I couldn't do it yesterday because my daughter had swim lessons and I couldn't make it. So I did it Monday. And all that day Monday, I was anxious. I was super fucking anxious about it. I don't know why. I guess it was just an obligation or something. And even before I left the house, I looked at my wife and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this. I feel anxious. And then I had to work my way through it. Like, why do I feel anxious? You know, this is a new thing. I don't know. You know, this is how I felt when I first started going to meetings and shit of the, you know, of AA. And man, I'm super uncomfortable with this. And then, like, I drove there and I got there like fucking 20 minutes early. So I just sat in the car and played like the word jumble game on my phone till like, you know, about 10 minutes before. And it was at a Buddhist temple here in Eugene. And I'd never been in a Buddhist temple. I used to meditate a lot, and I don't meditate nearly enough. But, yeah, man, I loved it. I thought it was great. I walked in, and it was like a Buddhist temple, so I had to remove my shoes, you know. And and there's chairs. You can opt for a chair. Everything's very open. Like, you can have a chair, or you can sit on a pad on the ground with a little pillow. And so I opted to sit on the pad with the pillow, and it was a really positive experience. You know, I'm still like, well, I don't know if I'll attend another one because it didn't strike me the same way it did when I attended my first AA meetings. But I also believe that I don't have a bias necessarily, but I feel like my strength within going to the 12-step meetings that I go to is because I started there. So in my desperation, I walked into that room and got the tools I needed. Now, that being said, going to this meeting, I still feel like I can attend both, and there would be no conflict of interest because they were very similar to each other. I was struck by how incredibly similar they were, and I was also struck that I saw a lot of familiar faces, you know, from around the recovery community, people doing both at the same time, you know. I don't know. I mean, I guess we can both discuss the details of it together.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
had
I
to
imagine they're very similar.
very similar in structure, except that I found that the Refuge Recovery meetings were much more what's the word? They just weren't as structured. It was much
Right.
more like whatever is comfortable for you. Take off your shoes and either sit on the floor or sit on the chair.
Yeah.
And one of the first things the guy who was running the thing, what he said, this is not meant to replace your program. Is what
I said that too.
and I thought that was really interesting, and I can't wait to I really can't wait to get in and read this book and see what it's all about in depth. But I thought that was really great. So it was basically saying this is a way of Buddhism is a way of life, right? So I went with a friend of mine, somebody that or I should say a friend of my girlfriend, somebody I don't know very well, but who is somebody who I really enjoy seeing when I do. And he and I went, and they started. So he said this is just an addendum to whatever you're doing outside of this. And later, to go to that point, the gentleman that I went with, we went to Dunkin' Donuts and listened to like Sugar Ray and like it was the Blues Traveler on the louds, because that's what they play at the Dunkin'
Nice.
Donuts.
Yeah.
Like it was
Yeah.
it was the polar opposite of this.
I still like Blues Traveler, dude. I don't care what anybody says. But anyway,
I'm not, you don't let the hook bring you down.
the hook brings you back.
Or brings you
homie.
back. That's but what he said, he was telling me the story about going to a Buddhist temple in Thailand, and the Buddhist monk who was running the whole program said, and I'd like to introduce my Jewish Buddhists and my Catholic Buddhists and my Christian Buddhists. And
Yeah.
because Buddhism, as far as I understand it, is a way of life, it's not a religion.
Right.
So I think this is also something that is much more palatable to people who have had issues with religion in the past.
Right.
So when he said that, I really was like, oh, okay, this is cool. They're not trying to replace anything. They're not trying to, and I don't think that anybody in the recovery community that I've met is not looking to like get followers, or do you know what I mean? Is not looking
Yeah.
to
I know what you
try and like steal followers, or you know what I mean? It's not that kind of thing.
Right. Like
So,
there's these sects or something like sect, SECTS sects,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, yeah, like, no, they don't do recovery correctly. We do it correctly. There have been instances of that within recovery. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it's common.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's the goal of recovery. The goal is to not fucking get loaded and to live as content of a life as possible. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, serenity. Serenity now. Like,
we started
yeah.
we started our meeting off with a 20-minute meditation.
Yeah, I know. So did I. Yeah, yeah.
And I have a few thoughts on that.
And how's your back? Did your back hurt?
A little. My back was hurting because I did like earlier that day. I did almost an 8-mile hike.
Wow,
So-
nice.
Yeah, not so.
Doing that hat. Yeah,
Yeah, I was in that fucking Tilly hat.
hat. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, did you sit on the floor on a pillow, or did you sit in a chair, folding chair?
I just sat in the folding chair with the.
Okay.
They had a blanket behind it, so.
Yeah, I sat in the floor in a pillow, and like I would like to think that my core muscles are doing better than they were before, but man, my back. It was hard for me to meditate because I was trying to stay upright, so I started just leaning against the wall, and when I laid against the wall, it kind of relieved the pain in my back, and I could still kind of try to focus on just like meditating. I like meditating though. I just not sitting up like that. I wish they'd let me lay down on the floor. Just
I don't think that they would have
fucking
stopped you if you would have had space.
No.
They would have just said they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Nobody would have said anything because everyone's doing
It would
their
have
own
been my
thing.
first time though. I just show up randomly, like just come in and lay down.
Hey man, it's a good clean place to take a nap if that's what you
eat the
need.
orange off the temple. They had the Buddha eat the little orange, eat some of the rice, lay down.
So I was pretty cool with it. At first, it was a little I was like 20 minutes, and I don't want to say that I don't want to say that I struggle with meditation. I don't struggle with it. What my particular issue is making it an actual habit in my life, because I did it I remember the first time that I got like 41 days in a row, and I was super stoked, and I think I did like 45 or something like that, and so now it's sort of intermittent, and I haven't really set aside the time for it.
Same here. Yeah.
The time is there because we're talking if I just did it 10 minutes a day, and I don't have an excuse good enough that I don't have 10 extra minutes. You know what I mean? So that's my issue with it. So when we finally, for a second, I was like, 20 minutes? Jesus, I was here to get some enlightenment and, like, give it to me now kind of thing,
Right.
But I sat in the chair for 20 minutes. It was guided. Like, the dude just had it
Yeah,
on his
same
little
here.
Alexa, like, speaker.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ours is a little more organic than that.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah.
Was it
Our lady had
somebody?
a bowl.
Mm-hmm.
She hit the bowl, boom, and then she told you what to do while she was meditating, and then there were 3 phrases, and she would repeat these 3 phrases, and she would say, "Try to repeat these phrases in your mind."
So it was a
And I
chant.
can't. It was a chant, but it wasn't. It wasn't out loud. It was internal. It was. They were basically like, "You are not responsible for other people's happiness or freedom. They're responsible for it." And then the other one was. Negative things that happen to you are not negative because they're happening to you. They're negative because of the way you perceive them. Like the way you perceive what's happening to you, that's why it's a negative thing. And I can't remember the other one. Something about being kind or something about kindness and compassion. I can't remember them exactly.
Huh. Okay. No, we didn't do any of that. We did it was a guided meditation. It was about it was about smiling, like my heart smiling and my
Yeah.
my eyes smiling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we did that for 20 minutes, and then we just went around the room and shared.
Shared. Yeah. Did you share?
I did. Yeah. I mean, that was
So did
basically
I.
because I was with the guy, and so he shared, and then he said, "John, you're next," and I just said, I just talked about it, and I explained. I said, I'm from, because the other thing they said, all you have to do is introduce yourself with your name. You don't have to say anything about your addiction or whatever.
Addiction, whatever it is. You don't have to. I did, but that's because I do. I don't know.
Yeah, and what was I gonna say? So we did that, and then we go to share, and I shared a little bit about why I was there and that I had come from AA, and that I was just looking for not necessarily something more, but that I was looking for, I was just curious that I like meditation. I think that it helps, and I would just wanted to know more. And I had a friend here, and I think I used an analogy that I read in Mishka's book, and he talks about if you had a jar full of beads and you broke it on the ground. That's what sobriety's kind of like, because you have to clean up all the beads and broken glass, and you may think you've cleaned it.
That's a great analogy.
You'll read it later in the book, but when you clean it up, you're going to find a bead in the couch cushion like years later, and these kind of things. And I was just talking about trying to clean up things, and that's what I've really. I mean, I think that I've been working on lately is just trying to clean up things, and so everybody shared, and it was super cool because there was only like 5 or 6 of us, and the kid next to me was having troubles, and this woman was doing really great, and it was just a really simple, easy sharing. I mean, that's all it was, so
We did a book reading.
okay.
And I didn't have a book because everybody ran up and grabbed the books. There was like almost 30 people in this room.
Oh, wow.
It was a big room, and they had brought in a handful of guys who were in the from rehab, and it always strikes me when you see these guys coming in from rehab, because my heart goes out to them because they're early. They're like real wet, behind the ears, and it was like a group of guys. It was probably like 8 or 9 of them, and a lot of them were young, some of them were older. And I always notice how the guys in early recovery, especially coming from the rehab, and it's not a judgment call or anything, they just seem real cagey. Do you know what I mean? Like they seem, I can feel that early recovery coming off of them, that kind of uncertainty and nervousness.
Want to bolt.
Want to bolt, exactly, and being like, what the fuck am I doing here? But I need to be here. That's all the can't and must going on right there, dude. I can't drink, but I must drink, or I can't use, but I must use. So I noticed them in the room immediately, but we read out of the book. All those guys jacked all the books. I was like, fuck, I got no book. And so the dude, and they gave you the option to pass. I mean, it's Eugene, Oregon, so everything is very like. I think that's why there's a lot of people there too, because Eugene is really. You lived here. It's very. It's a very
crunchy, organic,
crunchy, spiritual kind of place
Yeah.
without being too evangelical about it. You know?
Yeah.
There was a Buddhist monk in our meeting, and it was really interesting because he was part of the group. You know, he was in recovery as well, and that was really cool. You know, and we did the book reading. The guy next to me lent me his book, and then the lady who was next in line didn't have a book, so I put past the book to her, and then the book was like dog-eared and had highlighters and post-it notes in it, and the guy leans over and he goes, "Hey, get that book back when she's done, okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course, dude." Like, but yeah, it was kind of like after that, it was kind of that popcorn share, you know, where they like pick whoever, you know, they want to, and then that person they share, and then they pick the next person, and so they picked me. And there was this reading from the book, man, and it was like all about kindness and compassion, but there was also this whole analogy of not analogy, but this concept of pain. And this idea, not the idea, but this reality that pain is a learning mechanism. Not only is it a way for your body to tell you to not do this thing because it's harming you physically, but even emotional pain, physical pain, they're a learning mechanism. And it's come up a lot. It came up a little bit in Mishka's book and in that Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It came up in there too, this idea of pain helping you learn. And I really immediately thought of Bukowski's what matters most is how well you walk through the fire.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it is, right? What matters most is how well you walk through the fire. And how the idea, the pain of having to go through early recovery, and even the pain of having to go through extended recovery at times is a learning pain, you know? You have to walk through this fire to learn. And so I just kind of explained it that way, that it just kept coming up in my life, you know, in the past week or so, and it was very interesting.
I had a little sort of moment this morning in regards to pain. So it was a very busy morning for me, and I was meeting up with a friend, and we were going to do some work, and then but I had to go get groceries, and I had to get gas, and I had to make sure I get these things done. And so the most effective way for me to get a quick workout in is to go do the exercise bike at the gym.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just going to do this real quick. I crank up I know this sounds silly, but so I crank up the resistance, and I'm going and I'm going and I'm going. And all of a sudden my knees really start to hurt. My thighs really start to hurt. And I was like, well, what if you just go longer? What's on the other side of this? Like,
right.
Is there a point where when you're at resistance 11 that this doesn't hurt? Like, what is that like?
Yeah.
And I know that's like, maybe that's a little bit different, but because, you know, recovery is more emotional, but there's still physical pain.
But it's a good analogy, though. Yeah, there is still physical, but it's still an analogy, because how much can your heart and your soul hurt before you come out on the other side of it? You know? Yeah. My idea was also that I had to strongly, and now less strongly, go against all of my ideals in life, and I had to go against who I was fundamentally as a person in the beginning. I had to not change, but go upstream from what my brain was telling me to do all the time, and that was painful. Mm-hmm. Like, I had to go out there every day in the fucking world, and I still do, and be like, this is not who I am. You know what I mean? But this is, my brain is telling me this is who you are, and you know what I mean? Like, that internal spiritual part of me is like, this is not who you are, and you know that, dude. The irrational part of your brain's like telling you that this is the way it is, and it's not. So to me, that was also the pain of learning. Like, almost like you pushing on that bike, you know? It's like, dude, if you can get through this, what's on the other side? Did you get through it, or no? Did you give up?
I do it on sort of a way to phrase it. I don't know what I necessarily gave up, but I took as much pain as I could. I didn't get through it. Yeah. I didn't go through it today. But at one point, like the resistance kind of jumps down, and I was like, I can't fucking do it. My knees hurt. And so I just pushed it down before it was ready to go to the cool down mode or whatever. Yeah, but so, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's on the other side of the pain. Not yet. I haven't gotten there yet. Not today. But, you know, one of the cool things, I think I really enjoyed the meeting. It felt kind of like, I'll put it to you this way. You know, when I was telling my girlfriend about it, and I said, you know, it didn't seem to have it didn't have as much structure. You know, I said to her, I'm not sure how you could get sober without any sort of real structure, you know? And she's like, or how I was like, how are any of these people? And I said, and I was thinking to myself, that's not really the best way to look at it, but that's how I feel right now. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
John, you just feel that way because you need structure to get sober. That's
Yeah,
you. You're
dude.
just,
Wow, look at that.
you're imposing
Dude.
your needs and your feelings onto, but what if it does, and I don't know enough to say that it doesn't have structure, but if that's my
Mm-hmm.
3 second, my 1 hour analysis, like even if it doesn't have as much structure, if that works for somebody and that's all that somebody needs, if it's everything that somebody needs, if it fits perfectly in your life, then far be it from me to say, it was my own personal issues that were coming out. Not that I was
Yes.
projecting
Yeah.
them on other
Mm-hmm.
people, but I
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, I'm the one who needs structure. I'm the one apparently who needs to be told
Right.
what to do.
And I think that's why you took so well with AA. Do you know what I mean? Because there was a
Mm-hmm.
structure there. That's why I took so well with the program, because there were things that I didn't have to do, but there were like things that were suggested to me that I should do, and so I stuck within those parameters as well as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I still live those things today, but I looked at it as more of like a seasoning to my recovery. It's just a little extra salt or a little extra flavor, some extra amendment, like an extra thing to help me work through this recovery where I don't have to. I don't know. Okay, so this one gentleman shared, and he was saying, he was a member of AA for a long time, and he said if you look at the 12 steps of AA, they're very Buddhist in nature. A lot of
Yeah.
the ideas are very Buddhist. He said the only problem was with me personally, the way I looked at it. This is what this gentleman said, was that when Bill W. wrote them, he put in all this evangelical stuff into it, which is slightly evangelical, in its own way. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And so I saw that and went, wow, they are really kind of Buddhist in nature. Like this whole taking inventory, owning your own shit, making amends to people, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like being
Mm-hmm.
kind to other people, helping
Yeah.
out those that are sicker than you. I mean, I imagine those are all the kind of do no harm kind of philosophy of Buddhism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I've heard that, Bill W. took a lot of Buddhist
Yeah.
thoughts and ideas and put it into AA. And
Mm-hmm.
when they talk about the Four Noble Truths, and the guy was super cool. He was kind of describing what the Noble Truths were, and I guess there's the Four Noble Truths, and then there's the Eightfold Path. So that's 12 different pillars, and so once a month they changed the pillar, and they were going through the different, like that's the topic of that month or whatever it is. And but I just wanted to read real quick the Eightfold Path, which leads to recovery. So there's understanding, intention, communication and community, action and engagement, livelihood and service, effort and energy, mindfulness and meditations, and concentration meditations.
Right.
And I mean, this is all stuff that's absolutely helpful that I hear and I go, yeah, I need more of that. Like I didn't
Yeah.
hear anything where I was like, yeah, man, this ain't for me. The only thing I could think of was that I came to realize was like, oh, I need more structure, or I need to be
Right.
able to not judge, because that's what I did. I was judging this process
Yeah.
unjustly
Mm-hmm.
because of my previous bias, or where I had fallen my moment of desperation, my gift of desperation that led me to find what works for me,
Mm-hmm.
and just for me. Because even the way that you work your program is different from mine. Even if we
Yeah.
even if we read from the same book, we're getting different ideas. And thank God, because it's great to have other people as resources. And because of the gentleman that I went with, and his name is Frank O'Connor, and he does a podcast called Celtic Mindfulness. He's an Irish guy. And he's an interesting fellow. He played piano at a bar called Lefty O'Doul's for like 40 years in San Francisco, playing like
Really?
Piano Man and fucking Brown Eyed Girl and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Wow.
And so he does all this Celtic mindfulness stuff now. And
Check him out. Check out that podcast. I'm
yeah.
gonna check it out. Sounds
it's on
interesting.
it's on YouTube. Him and his friend Donna, which is Donagh, I think is how you pronounce or spell that name. But so it's these two
Donna.
old Irish dudes who get on the mic and just talk about mindfulness and recovery. It's great.
Rad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out, dude. Learning new shit.
Mm-hmm. So
I didn't think it was unstructured. My own personal opinion of it was I enjoyed it. I would probably return again, and like I said, I'd probably use it as
An addendum.
another tool, an addendum, or another tool, or maybe in addition to a tool I'm using.
Yeah.
You know, like the little magnet end on a drill that actually holds the screw in. You know, like I'm full of these metaphors, but you
Yes.
know what I'm saying? Like, to use it that way. I mean, this one tool I'm using is already pretty useful, but this little attachment helps me get through the job I got to do, which is getting up and being a pleasant person and making everybody around me not feel like garbage,
Yeah.
and me not feeling like garbage.
Yeah. I mean, I had nothing but good things to say about it, and it was super mellow and low key, and I put $1 in the basket, and
I left my wallet in the car, dude. That's how nervous I was. Can you imagine this? I was having anxiety over going to go fucking meditate, dude. This is how tightly wound I can be, man.
yeah.
And then I left there feeling good. I was like, wow, okay, yeah. You know what? The universe is okay.
That's always the thing. Whenever I'm
right.
going to something, whenever I get out of a meeting of any kind, I'm always feeling better, than when I showed up, and even as much anxiety as I might have about being there. And then I start to really like stack it all. Like, where am I going to park, and how early should I be? And who am I going to run into? And is somebody going to make me read some shit out loud? And
right.
where am I going to sit? Is my favorite seat going to be available? Because if it's not, then I'm not fucking staying. And, like all this stupid stuff that's not important. And really, I don't know. The more I go to these things, the more I just kind of strip away the stupid stuff and really kind of focus on just being there, being in the moment and being present. And, I'm looking forward to reading this book and Annie Grace's book, which, her whole thing is like, are you an alcoholic? And, take the survey, and then you flip this page and it's like, nobody's an alcoholic. And then she goes into like all the neurology of it, and she just got a whole nother outlook on it, and like, that's fine. I don't have to share that outlook to appreciate what she's doing or how she's doing it, or to take some of the tools that these people have put forth that have worked for them and for countless others. Right.
Right. It's all give and take. I look at it like the way I looked at my own spirituality before I found recovery, and even the own kind of spirituality I carry now, which I learned from my mom, which was just take what works for you and just discard what doesn't. So like, I was raised really Catholic, so there are some Catholic ethics that I hold, or maybe some ritual there that I still use that I just was raised with. But then I had an ex-girlfriend who was super Buddhist, and her whole family were all Buddhist, and so I would learn things from them and take that from, do you know what I mean? It was just taking little bits of things from everywhere. So I try to apply the same to my recovery. So this is the most AA heavy podcast we've done, I think, where we've mentioned it the most. Well, and even with Alcoholics Anonymous, dude, I just take what I need from it. I try to give back to those people that need something that I might know, or just to hear what I have to say so they can relate. But I'm kind of selfish. Like, I take what I need out of it and I bring that back to me, and I work my own recovery with it, and hopefully me working my recovery helps other people work their recovery. Or if they have a question, ask me. I'll help you, dude. But, I just take from everything and try to keep myself afloat,
I just read, or I just listened to Rich Roll's book, called Finding Ultra, and it's a lot more about fitness than it is about recovery, but that's a huge part of his story as well. And he says that about his own book. He said just take what resonates with you and discard the rest, because a lot of times I don't feel like I'm taking in enough, or I'm looking at the right things, or maybe I need to be looking at something more, or if here's something that I don't like that maybe I should be into, or maybe I should be investigating, and then I get overwhelmed with like what I'm not doing rather than what I am doing. And so, and then it doesn't all have to resonate with me. It doesn't all have to be something that fills my heart with joy, because it's not going to. There's going to be certain things that work, and then just get rid of the rest. Right. So I think that's a valuable lesson that I've learned.
Yeah. And there'll be hard parts to it too. I like how I always throw that shit.
Yes, there will.
It's gonna be fucking hard, but yeah, life is hard anyway. I mean, life is difficult. Like I said, you need the pain to learn, and you need the difficulty to learn.
And it sucks, and it's worth it.
And it's all chaos. It sucks. It's worth it, and it's all chaos, man. It's all fucking. It doesn't matter. Like, I mean, it just will happen regardless. Whatever bad thing it is. Maybe it's even just a bad thing is stubbing the fucking balls out of your toe.
Stubbing the balls out of your toe.
I did that, man. We had this huge snowstorm like 5 months ago, and we got snowed in. Our power got turned out, and I stubbed the shit out of my toe, and my toenail's still black. And this should happen in February.
Gross.
Yeah, it's gross. I take my sock off. It's not sexy. It's disgusting. I have a black toenail. Everybody's like, it's gonna fall off. I'm like, it hasn't fallen off yet. It's hanging out for dear life, dude.
So with that,
I'll send you a picture.
Yes, I'll put it on the internet.
Say,
I mean,
easy does it.
I don't know. There's probably so much more we could talk about, and I haven't read the book, and I haven't read any of the literature, and I've only been to one meeting. So, I would say that I would go back, and I'm definitely like, I'm going to do a little podcast crossover with Frank O'Connor over at Celtic Mindfulness, and and I think the 90 minutes I spent in the Dunkin' Donuts with him, I think I enjoyed more than the hour I spent, but it was like the whole experience was great because I got to see this little slice of life, and it was just a little office building with some chairs and some people talking and trying to help each other out and sharing. And like, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I need. I'm so glad I did this on a day I don't normally do this. I'm so glad I went somewhere different and, got to sit and meet new people. And it was a relief all in all. And it was
I'll probably go again too.
Yeah.
I probably will because I enjoyed it. And I really, what you said earlier struck me as like a room of people trying to help each other and listen to each other. And that's why we call it a recovery community. Like we need this. We need to help each other out because we are all different people. Like John and I are really close friends, but we look at the world very differently at times. And like we still have that one thing we can relate. There's this one thing between us that held us together as glue as friends, and now holds us, together as glue as friends now. And it was our drinking. And now it's our like ability to like deal with not drinking and
being on the other end of it.
Being on the other end of it. And I really feel like the community part of the recovery community is important. Like we all need each other, If you can do it alone, that's fucking awesome. Once again, send me an email, show me how you did it alone. 'Cause I would like to steal some of your stuff too.
You should listen to the podcast with Mishka. He talks about it.
Yeah, because he kind of does it alone in his own way, I imagine. Yeah,
he does, and he talks about that too. But yeah, man, I thought it was great, and I'm. It just reminds me that I need to keep my mind open for other ways of doing this thing called life.
Yeah. This little thing we call life.
But I really enjoyed myself, and I'm glad. I would say, if you're looking for a different experience, and if whatever you're doing right now doesn't feel right, go find a Refuge Recovery meeting in your area.
Yeah, I think you would like it. Maybe
not, but
maybe not.
I'm glad that we got to do a little sobriety investigative journalism for you guys.
A little investigative. Yeah, this is a hit piece on Buddhism. Yeah. No, it was wonderful. I enjoyed it, and I have a feeling I will be doing it a couple more times. Maybe turn that into a habit as well.
Cool,
because it was really helpful.
Right on. Well, thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, I'll be sending you that black toe picture in a minute or two.
Namaste.
Namaste, bro. Namaste, or should I? Namaste or not my go?
You going to the yoga studio? Namaste here, man.
Namaste here, man. Hey, knock knock.
Who's there?
Panther.
Panther who?
Panther, no panther. I'm going swimming.
Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.